Hey guys, my name is Kevin Carr. In today's video, I'm going to be kind of describing an exercise I found in this book I've been recently reading by Jarn Strustrup. Hopefully, I'm not mispronouncing that, but it's Programming Principles and Practice Using C++. It had a really interesting topic on basically some of the ideals of programming about people and software. So I'm just going to kind of go through the questions that were asked at the end of the chapter, and then also my thoughts on things such as what is software? Like, what's the purpose of software? How is software found in our lives? So the first question is, what is software? So I personally put, and one thing I would really find interesting is, like, a year from now, how these answers change for me as I become a even more experienced software engineer. But I would encourage anyone to answer these questions themselves if you're in a tech-related career, or if you're even interested in programming, because it really helps clarify your thinking. And don't worry, I'm going to add all the questions and kind of what I wrote for each one of them. But the first question is, what exactly is software? So I put, software is the direct expression of an idea that addresses a real-life problem and that runs on a computer. This often involves accessing, moving, storing, and transforming data into a more useful form and done efficiently. These programs often run on hardware, so the computer, the angle there. So the next question is, why is software important? Well, software is important because it is a useful tool to basically experiment and transform abstract thought, or transform a complex series of ideas or processes into something more practical. For example, being able to schedule your day in a calendar allows the user to free up some of their mental space. Instead of having to remember appointments and their schedule, they can focus on more high value and creative things that are related to what they have to do for the day. Sometimes the human limitation in which software can be more precisely perform the task. So what I mean by that is sometimes when, let's say, we're working through an Excel spreadsheet, or we have to do something that is like very manual, we can automate that through software and do it usually with less errors and with less time too. Just think about like actual microscopic surgery done through a robot. That uses a lot of software to go through that. So, and then finally, software is one of those things, like with knowledge, it can be greatly built upon. So, for example, the person who created C++, Jarn Strustrup, I'm able to use his software and his ideas to build my own programs and find utility in my own life to use software to make it easier to do things. So you can always build on these ideas, and it helps society in general. So the third question is, where is software important? So I put, software is important everywhere and for everyone. Any field, even creative, uses software to more easily work with their craft and easily distribute it. So think about, like, you're a YouTuber or someone providing education. Especially during this pandemic, a lot of teachers have been able to teach through Zoom. The distribution is really key. So compare this to a couple hundred years ago. You might have been able to write a book and that gets distributed to some people, but now information is more easily digestible and distributed through software. And touches so much aspects of our life. Just like a small little example, I'm able to automatically brew my coffee at a certain time when I wake up, because someone was able to program that software to look at time and then automatically trigger water to go through the coffee system. And then finally, where it's important is that software, we're able to express ideas and really transform complex processes and systems into an easier interface or easier way of doing things. So think about logistics. Instead of people have to plan with paper and call, a lot of that stuff can now be automated through data being transmitted from point A to point B and company A to point B. And that results in things being as cheap as it ever has been to manufacture. So what could go wrong if software fails? So I kind of thought about this philosophically too, but software failures could lead to deaths. So maybe it's like a medical application. If it's not coded properly, maybe it fails when electricity is not being run through it. There's a lot of serious edge cases we have to consider when we build software. Failures of power grids, for example, could be a failure of software. lost pictures of loved ones and the dearly departed. So, for example, let's say that you store photos on a cloud storage, and for some reason their data gets corrupted, maybe from network outage, a power outage, maybe a natural flood, who knows? But that's severely going to impact someone's emotional state because they lost that picture of someone they love. And now, kind of more on a higher level, where can software fail? It could fail somewhere like mainland China, where they're utilizing software to implement a state social credit score, where they have more tools to surveil their citizens and keep them in control. We can also think about lost billions of dollars on software errors. I think there was an example of a company, a trading platform, that lost $100 million because of a trading error in their software. And then we even have moments of where software can be used to kind of stoke the flames of divide in genocide. I think in Myanmar, or which used to be called Burma, there have been some elements of social media being able to stoke rhetoric and be used as a propaganda distribution device. Again, technologies and software is amoral, but it could be used for nefarious purposes, and I would consider that a failure of utilizing software, building software with that in mind. Not necessarily anyone's fault, but with any type of tool, it could be used for bad purposes. What are some jobs related to software development? So what I put was product manager, graphic designer, UX, UI designer, tester, quality assurance, chaos engineer, network engineer, IT tech, so information technology tech, quantitative trader, roboticist, scientist, teacher, the list goes on. The next question is, what is the difference between computer science and programming? So I put it like this, and especially when I read this chapter, was the difference between the two is like a spectrum between theory and practicality. So computer science can delve into algorithms, data structures, efficiency, and complexity, especially computational complexity, while programming can be best described as the implementation of these abstract ideas into procedures that anybody can use. With the far end of this like practicality section or spectrum being more hacking and scripting, without really thinking about like the whole components of a system. So the next question is, where in the design, construction, and use of a ship is software used? So when you think about the actual manufacturing and designing of a ship, you can use something called computer-assisted design and computer-assisted manufacturing. So if anything, you can use software in order to see if a prototype is feasible. Think about something like this simple shampoo bottle. It uses some recycled materials. It's made of a compostable plastic. Or a more eco-friendly plastic. Some computer-assisted design software was able to make sure that the logistics of actually packing this would cheaply deliver to a place like Whole Foods or other grocery store. And then also for actually prototyping this bottle, they probably went through a lot of different plastics and chemical compounds. So software can greatly help with that. And not to kind of go on too much a tangent, you think of something like this smart keyboard, right? In order to design, prototype this, and also manufacture it at a cheap cost that consumers would want to use, Apple basically used software in order to work with their manufacturers to develop that something that was highly intuitive to its users, but also be able to make it logistically feasible to deliver that to the customers in a very affordable price for their customer. And then also with a ship, you can think about things like weather information processing, current detection, weather patterns, communicating between the coast guards of different nations, information processing of the crew, inventory management for the culinary experts on the ship, and a lot of other things as well. The next question is, what is a server farm? A server farm is a collection of servers to perform high performance computing on a large-scale data. So I usually think about cloud providers like AWS, Google, at Microsoft Azure. They're being able to provide rented compute power in order for any type of user to leverage their economies of scale. So the next question is, what kind of queries do you ask online? So I thought more practical side for this, but how much do I spend on food delivery this month was my bank account balance. And usually for financial companies, that's the most often queried piece of information for any user. What is the weather like tomorrow? That's really good if you want to know if you need to prepare to wear a jacket for the next day. Is tonight's meetup canceled? What is the price of item I have put on my shopping wish list? Now, the next question is, what are some uses of software in science, medicine, and entertainment? So I made this kind of simple, but for science, the mapping of the human genome, microscopic surgery, chemical engineering, like being able to determine the chemical components for a new perfume, maybe a new textile. For medicine, you can think about more recently like COVID-19 content tracing, prescription delivery, electronic health records, insurance fraud detection and processing. For entertainment, you can think about like automated concert lighting, audio engineering, image editing, video editing, YouTube, content discovery, and copyright claim detection. So the kind of final group of questions are, what general properties do we expect from good software? So I thought about this for a second, and I thought that good software does what we expect it to do every single time. Good software delivers consistent results. It simplifies complex ideas and processes into a simple tool that can be used by many. It is easy to maintain and build upon, so that kind of goes to readability. It is tested and designed to consider edge cases that might affect users. So let's say that you're a software company that deals with billions of transactions, billions of users. An edge case that affects 1% of people means that there's a million cases of that every single year or day or month that those users use that software. So those edge cases matter. The next question is, what does a software developer look like? So I put a software developer could be anybody. The most important components of a software developer engineer is that anyone trying to understand the topic they are working on, communicate the implementation of the software with others, and someone who expresses their understanding of the problem to create a solution that makes the software that their users use and make their life easier. What are the stages of software development? One, to understand the problem. Two, talk through the best ways to create a tool that simplifies and solves the problem. Three, experiment, test, and gather feedback on best ways to implement that solution expressed for the implementation of code. And finally, four, provide users a simple interface that simplifies their life and consistently delivers the expected result. The next question is, why can software development be difficult? Software development can be difficult because it requires soft skills to work with others. In order to understand a problem, any problem requires intellectual curiosity and a certain humbleness to realize you don't know everything and that you need to work with others to understand the problem. Software is not just about code, it's about communicating and understanding the ideas and problems for the topic that you're trying to work with. Not just understanding, but a willingness also to be multidisciplinary in the topics that you learn about. So you can't just be about coding or software, but the software you're trying to create, you might have to learn about biological topics, chemical topics, maybe accounting, depending on what software you want to create. What are some uses of software that make my life easier? Automated brewing of my morning coffee. That's more hardware related, but that's some way that makes my life easier. Access to infinite amount of knowledge. In today's culture, it's so much easier to get access to anything through YouTube, through Google searches, through Stack Overflow. I actually was able to learn programming just from free resources online. Maybe that wouldn't have been possible in the 70s, 80s, 60s. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here. Grocery delivery delivered to my house. The logistics involved and the software created to enable that is so impressive. The ability to talk with others on FaceTime, on my phone is just incredible to me. And the ability to know where I'm going through GPS. I know a couple decades ago you would have to read a map to understand where you're going. the ability to make a living writing and making software. So I'm really extremely grateful how software has impacted my life and my ability to make a living and work on intellectually complex and hard problems. So I love that. What are some uses of software that have made my life more difficult? So I kind of think of automated ticketing on toll roads. That could be an example. Government form fillings. If there's an edge case and it's not properly addressed, it might be impossible to fill out a form. Again, the China example, the social credit score system, that could be that's something probably for citizens of mainland China that it makes your life more difficult. You can even think about like locally abroad, not abroad, domestically here, the NSA tracking citizens' data. So this is some uses of software that might make your life difficult. Let's see. And again, like using everyday software, what are my use cases? Like editing YouTube videos. There's a lot of video and image editing software that I use, such as Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Premiere Pro, that makes my life easier and easy to deliver these YouTube videos. I use TubeBuddy for YouTube as well, to able to kind of analyze and use the best tag SEO in order to reach my audience, to people who haven't seen my videos yet. The keyboard and mouse input to ability to actually write the narrative scripts for these videos, and also my calendar to schedule events. So software basically touches every aspect of our lives. So the next question is, pick a profession, preferably one that has some interest in or some knowledge of. Make a list of activities done by people in that profession that involve computers. So I kind of chose more like the blue collar, like electricians and plumbers. So I thought scheduling software, inventory management for a third party, maybe something like Home Depot or Lowe's, invoicing, sending invoices to customers through email, tax accounting software, GPS software to go from point A to point B, the cellular data in order to talk to their customers and suppliers, insurance tracking, so maybe they have to send receipts of what they work on. IoT devices can actually be help monitor certain pieces and components, whether it is electrical box or maybe some plumbing under the sink, to see if there's a leak. Vehicle monitoring and fuel injection, automated power tools and meters. So the list goes on and on. From your own experience, describe an activity that would not have been possible without computers. So again, I think the ability to FaceTime and talk with others, especially since my family and relatives live in different states, it wouldn't be possible without software and computers. And that's pretty much it. I thought these were really interesting questions, and I might do this video again in the future, maybe a year, a couple months from now, because I'm sure my answers will be a little bit more refined and change as I get more experienced. But I thought these were really interesting questions. I'm, of course, going to add this in the description, but I would take the same questions and see if you can answer them too. I think they've made me realize that software is not a niche topic. It can affect every area of your life, and that's important to realize when you're writing software, that there's a lot of different areas you can become intellectual curious about and learn more. So you can always improve your craft and do better and learn about other topics as well. And it's definitely made my life better learning about software and being able to make it. And I think one of those cool things is, like, the more you learn about software and writing code, is the more you realize like how complex the systems in our life are, how everything is interconnected, and usually when you write your own software, like how much you stand on the shoulders of giants, kind of like Isaac Newton said, like you're building a little bit extra to move civilization, society forward, and not only is it fun, but also it could be tremendously impactful to someone using your software. So there's a lot of impact that your contributions to making software can have on people. So I just want to leave you guys with that. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next video. Cheers.